Greetings, brave adventurers! My name is FoxyBard, and it is once again time to engage in RPG horror stories. Yeah, we're still doing this. But there is always more to learn, so the only thing we can do is our best. So, let's get right into it, shall we? Our first story today comes from the user WereBadger, and is entitled, Player Thinks He Can Solve Racism with a Shopping Montage. In this story we have a white dude faced with bigotry against him for the first time, even if it is just fantasy, and his poor reaction to it. So, tales start. This was in a homebrew 5e campaign pitched as serious and roleplay heavy within a common friend group of people in their mid to late 20s. The DM told us ahead of character creation that, for lore reasons, certain races would potentially face racism in this setting, and recommended we only create a character of those races if we were up for role-playing that. Okay, I get the urge to do this, it's just kind of boring. I mean, okay, well, not boring, it's not boring, but it's like, I just don't see the reason to make sure that this is the thing that exists in your fantasy setting. Like, this is the realism you want to bring in, and not other... I don't know. In particular, he told us that orcs and half-orcs would face extreme racism. One player, a white man like most of the group, made a half-orc named Throwbar, choosing the race mostly because he wanted the racial traits for a specific character build. The game starts, and a few sessions in, the party encounters a group of soldiers on the road. The soldiers become immediately suspicious of the party because we're traveling with a half-orc, and make a few racist comments. Throwbar is shocked, as if he's never encountered bigotry before in his life. He tries to argue the captain out of being racist. You can't do that, that's not how racism works, but only succeeds in aggravating him more. The captain demands the party hand over their weapons and makes it clear that there will be a fight if we don't. Before we can even discuss the situation, Throwbar decides, well, I guess I attack him, forcing us all into a combat that our level 3 characters probably can't win. It would have been a TPK, except the DM was merciful and had the soldiers incapacitate and arrest us instead of killing. It's commonly said that you can't logic someone out of a position that they didn't logic themselves into. And racism applies. You can't logic someone out of racism. It's not possible. Once we managed to get out of trouble, Throwbar, like the rest of us, wanted to make sure something like that didn't happen again. His solution? In the next town, he went shopping for new clothes to make him look less threatening. The entire party sat for about an hour while he picked out a salmon polo shirt in D&D, okay, and commissioned a pair of purely aesthetic glasses, thinking that the outfit would somehow make people less racist. The rest of us were making jokes about how dumb the idea was, but it didn't stop him. He really thought he could model minority his way out of racism. The next time Throwbar encountered discrimination, he reminded the DM about... He reminded the DM about his new outfit and asked if it made a difference. The DM simply said, no, and kept going. Man, okay. Oh, white dudes really are something else sometimes. Dang. This same player managed to tank 2 different campaigns that I ran as a DM, and now a good portion of the friend group refuses to play with him at all. But those are different stories. Edit for clarification. People seem to be getting the idea that this campaign was just about racism. I didn't talk about the other things that happened in the campaign, because why would I include stuff that's not relevant to the story? Most characters we met didn't even mention his race, and the ones that were racist did not prevent him from doing anything plot crucial, just made some things more difficult, exactly like he was warned of ahead of time. Tale end. There's not a ton to be said about this one, though if you weren't aware, I guess it falls on me. The myth of the model minority is just that. It's a myth. You can't be good enough for racists. It doesn't work. That's not how Look, I should preface anything I say with the fact that I am also myself white, but my opinions on race are informed by listening to people of color instead of trying to speak over them. So I actually encourage anyone who has been on the receiving end of such things to sound off in the comments and tell people exactly your thoughts, rather than letting those of some white bitch try and summarize it for you. Because all I have is the voices I've heard, and my perspective maybe, in fact it definitely is, incomplete. Just fellow white people, don't do this. Good on the GM for understanding how it works, I guess. Next story. Our next story comes to us from the user Throw in the Towel. Oh. It's titled The Ballad of Insane Eddie. And Eddie here is, well, let's just say that this goes places that you probably never actually want to go to. You'll see. Tale start. Many years ago, I was DMing a Pathfinder 1E group. Ooh, that's my specialty. It was a great campaign, or at least it had the potential to be. Until Eddie came along. Eddie was that guy. The embodiment of hot topic shirts, questionable hygiene, and a misplaced sense of main character energy. Picture the kind of person who thinks just standing in the shower counts as clean, and whose personality is 80% second-rate anime protagonist, cringy one-liners included, 20% rules lawyer. He would lecture me, and everyone else, at every opportunity. Example, if I said, "You're level 6, so your fireball will deal 6d6 damage," he would feel compelled to interject that, "Actually, it's 1d6 per caster level." Okay, that is technically true, but it's not relevant to bring up mid-combat, which I'm assuming. Any chance he got to insert himself into a situation to show how clever he thought he was, he'd jump on others like a hungry dog on a pork chop, even if it was clear he had no idea what he was talking about. He just couldn't help himself. Now, look, I can be a stickler about getting things precisely correct at times, but there is a time and there is a place. And typically, hey, how much does my fireball do? What level are you? 6? It does 66. That's usually all it takes. You don't need to be like, well, it's actually your caster level, which if you have all 6 of your character levels in the same class is going to be 6. But if you had 3 levels in a different class and 3 levels in that first class, you actually wouldn't be able to cast Fireball at all. It's a 3rd level spell, and the earliest that any class gets it is 5th level, but you get my point. That's not the time for it. At best, people tolerated him, but the vast majority of people found him weird, off-putting, and genuinely insufferable to be around. Question? Why did you keep him around? Myself included, if that wasn't obvious by now. The only reason Eddie was at my table was because his brother, my best friend at the time, begged me to let him join. No. Give him a chance, and he's not always like this. Let me talk to him, were things that were frequently said. His attitude in-game was arguably worse, as every negative trait was turned up to 11. Some of Eddie's greatest hits include, let's play a game of how many red flags appear in these. I will put a red flag on screen for each one that appears. There's gonna be a lot. 1. Dice shenanigans. I had a house rule that you had to roll stats in front of me. Eddie brought a pre-made sheet saying he rolled 5 18s in a row. An argument broke out when I told him he'd have to re-roll, but could keep one of the supposed 18s he rolled as a compromise. There's actually a very easy solution to this one. It's called point buy, and it's impossible to cheat on. 2. Rules for thee, but not for me. Anything cool shit he wanted to do was A-okay, but anything that was negative or went against him was unrealistic and stupid. There's less of a neat, clean solution for this one, just gotta tell him no. Hey, it's like last week. 3. Projecting. Insulted one of my players on being unoriginal and boring, despite the fact that he himself was playing a human barbarian wielding a great axe. Look, it's a classic for a reason, but it's not original, man. 4. I dodge! Would try to tell me attacks shouldn't hit him because I would dodge out of the... Sorry, no, that's the wrong voice. I would dodge out of the way. Doge out of the way? Or he should instantly kill whatever he had managed to hit because he was aiming for the head or neck. Hey, I've got an easy solution to this one too. Dodging is included in your AC. If it beats your AC, it means you didn't dodge. And also, called shots are an optional rule in Pathfinder in the 1st edition. Most GMs don't use them, but you can totally do that. It makes it way harder to hit, and you'll probably miss most of the time, but you can do it. Dice Shenanigans Part 2. Would lie about his rolls. I would frequently watch him roll low, only for him to either straight up lie about it, or try to adjust the dice quickly. I mean, this one you just say, no, I know you changed it, I saw the lower number, you miss. Or if you see him specifically trying to change it, say, doesn't matter, you miss. If someone starts messing with their dice, it's an automatic fail. Period. 6. Backseat GMing. Tried to dictate to me, the GM, what loot he found in a chest. As you might guess, it was always some ridiculously powerful or broken item. No. I don't have a neat solution for this one. Just no. 7. Murder hobo vibes. Eddie's character was a human barbarian with the personality depth of a potato. Hey, as someone from Idaho, do not underestimate the common potato. This guy is an insult to potatoes. His in-game dialogue was a mix of brooding grunts, crude jokes, and constant demands for loot. He ignored NPCs, skipped roleplay, and only cared about swinging his axe. Honestly, there's games for that, he just wasn't in one. Which means kick him, that's the right thing to do. That was the right thing to do like 6 points ago. 8. Making us nomads. Got us collectively kicked out of the game store we were playing at because of multiple complaints about comments he made to other custom... Are you kidding me? That wasn't the line? How was that not the line? What? And number 9, drunken douchebag. Would frequently get drunk at the table, which only made his little temper tantrums worse. I think it's totally reasonable to enact a no drinking at the table rule when this sort of thing is likely to happen or has happened before. I personally will sometimes have a bit, but never so much that I'm actually, gone. Also, that was the last one. 9 points, 9 red flags. That's a lot. How'd we get this far? Yet all of that would pale in comparison to the incident that led to him getting the moniker of Insane Eddie. Keep in mind, we're playing at my grandfather's house when this goes down. Oh no! The campaign's story revolved around a rebellion. The party was trying to recruit allies for a second uprising after their first attempt failed. The group was negotiating with an NPC faction leader when Eddie, in true Eddie fashion, called them cowards for not handling their own problems. The trouble started when Sarah, who was playing a swashbuckler, that's like my favorite class, in the group, tried to smooth things over with a joke, quipping that Eddie's behavior was the result of a donkey kick to the head in his youth. The group laughed. that is an extremely likely backstory thing for a barbarian, let's be real. Eddie did not. He is livid both in and out of character, and immediately swings his axe at Sarah and just barely misses. After this, he challenges her to PvP because she has insulted him for the last time, and will literally not let us continue until she accepts. Now, I know something that Eddie doesn't, and, well, okay, I probably know a lot of things that Eddie doesn't, but one of them is that you don't beat a swashbuckler 1v1, especially as a fellow melee character. You just don't. My rules for PvP were simple. You dip at or below half your HP, and whatever hit is considered a decisive but ultimately non-lethal blow. They can also forfeit at any time. In the unlikely event that an attack would deal lethal damage, there would be some type of arbiter to intervene. I explain everything to everyone, all parties are in agreement, and PvP is underway. I don't hate these rules. It lets people have their little duel, but doesn't risk actually killing each other. Yeah, it's okay. The better answer would just be to say, no, we're moving on. Shut up. Please excuse me for this next part as I get overly analytical. I love that part. I'll get overly analytical with you. Eddie wins on initiative and is doing typical barbarian stuff by going into his rage and moving to power attack. He made two mistakes here. The first is that his rage is lowering his AC by 2, and the second is that he keeps power attacking, which at level 8 means he's roughly plus 14 damage from his rage and everything else factored in, but at a -3 penalty to hit. Okay, let's see. He's 8th level, so yeah, that's -3, and then it's plus 6, plus 50%, so plus 9. The remaining 5 damage on that. I'm guessing at 8th level he's probably got at least a +1 weapon, maybe a +2. I'd have a +2 by level 8. But that would mean that his strength is weirdly low, especially for rage. I don't know, that damage actually seems a bit too low. So unless he's very terribly built or has no good items, that seems wrong. Listen, you're gonna get analytical, I'm gonna get analytical right back. I love this shit. Ordinarily, this would be just a small drawback, mostly because you have the rest of your team to rely on. But since Sarah is playing a swashbuckler, it's infinitely worse for Eddie, since swashbucklers gain a, quite frankly, broken ability called Opportune Parry and Riposte. It is the core of swashbucklers, and they got rid of it in 2nd edition, so I can't play them anymore. I mean, I can, they're just not as fun for me. Don't worry about it. The gist of it is, by burning one of a set number of points swashbucklers get called panache, and using an attack of opportunity, swashbucklers can potentially block and counterattack on an opponent's turn. All Sarah has to do is beat Eddie's attack roll to parry, and then she can roll an attack roll to counterattack. Keep in mind, Eddie is at a -3 to hit, and -2 his AC, while Sarah gets to apply her full bonuses to her parry and attack rolls. So Eddie would actually only be at a -1 to hit because Rage comes with a +2. They're both full BAB classes, so they should be roughly equal on to hit bonuses. Although, as you'll see, Sarah is built well, and Eddie is not. Further adding fuel to the fire is the fact that Sarah has combat reflexes, which is extra attacks of opportunity, equal to your dexterity bonus, weapon focus, rapier, which is a bonus to hit, fencing grace, which is your dexterity to damage rolls. You don't get that by default in Pathfinder, like you do in D&D 5th edition. You have to take a feat for it. Or in 2nd edition, you have to specifically be the thief racket of rogue, and that's it, nobody else. Right. And improved critical, which swashbucklers actually get at level 5, which doubles your crit range, meaning she threatens a critical hit on a 15. In 1st edition Pathfinder, you still need to roll to confirm, though the confirm does not also need to be a crit, it just needs to be a hit. It sounds confusing if you aren't used to it, but you see it once or twice and you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And whenever she critically hits, she gets 1 of her panache points back. meaning that she can not only potentially block at least 4 melee attacks per round, but also replenish the panache points she spends. And that's how swashbucklers work. They're a lot of fun! Try them out sometime. It's one of my favorite first edition Pathfinder classes. I'm actually playing one in a campaign right now, but mine is using a weird archetype that instead of parrying attacks directed at me, I parry attacks directed at other people who are next to me and redirect them towards me, because I guess I just wanted to play a martyr. To Eddie's credit, he did hit with his first attack. This makes sense, because in Pathfinder 1st Edition, you actually are considered flat-footed until you've acted in combat. So Sarah was denied her dexterity bonus and any dodge bonuses, which swashbucklers do get. So she's much easier to hit and can't parry on that first turn since she lost initiative. And was very close to winning outright. All he had to do was land one more hit and he would have won, but he never did. I won't bore you with all the details, but from that point on, Sarah was firmly in the driver's seat. On her first full round attack, she ate a decent portion of Eddie's HP, and when it was Eddie's turn, she parried him twice and critically hit twice, which took an even more substantial amount. The entire time, Eddie is on the verge of a meltdown, crying about how unfair and unrealistic it is. The entire duel went about 3 to 4 rounds before it was over, and of course, the second it's said that Eddie's character couldn't continue anymore, he proceeded to lose his fucking mind. He throws all the maps, figurines, soda cans, etc. off the table and storms out into the backyard. Immediately kick him out of the house. His brother goes after him, and as we're cleaning up, I can hear them yelling through the glass door as we're cleaning up the mess he'd left. Just as we're finishing up and I'm explaining to Sarah and the other players that he's not gonna be welcomed back, I hear more shouting and the snapping of plastic. When I look up, Eddie has re-entered, and he's holding one of those twirly stick things for window blinds he's ripped from the back door window, and an axe he'd stolen from my grandfather's shed during his little temper tantrum. Oh, yeah, things have escalated. He throws the stick at Sarah, hitting her right in the face, and is yelling, taunting at Sarah to pick it up and try to block with it. His brother is doing his best to get in his way and hold him back. Sarah is crumpled on the ground. I'm yelling at him to get the fuck out. And the whole time, he's getting amped up like he's gonna fight a girl half his size. What a pathetic, sad little man baby. This is exactly the kind of guy who posts the Navy SEAL copy pasta unironically. During all this chaos, my grandfather comes in from the living room to see the absolute shit show this has turned into, and he's moving to pull the axe out of Eddie's hands along with every other guy there who's now trying to restrain him. Except his brother, of course. In the commotion, my grandfather ends up falling and hitting the edge of the counter and opening up a laceration on his forehead, but somehow manages to get the axe out of Eddie's hands. What followed next was a full-on brawl until Eddie's brother finally dragged him out of the house, with the cops arriving shortly after. Now, I am not a huge lover of the police, but this is exactly the right time to call the police. Good job. In the aftermath, Eddie was arrested, and my grandfather had to get more than a dozen stitches. Eddie's parents begged my grandfather not to press charges, and since Sarah refused to file her own, Eddie still ended up with a lesser charge. He was out far sooner than he deserved. I understand the impulse not to, but ooh, this is the time. This is the time. He's gonna do this again. As you might imagine, that was the end of my friendship with Eddie's brother, and the group didn't survive the fallout. Sarah was understandably shaken and didn't want to talk about it, or accept my apologies. She moved away about a year later, and the rest of us just drifted apart. From what I heard, Sarah's doing well now, married with a family of her own. Eddie, on the other hand, hasn't changed much. Last I heard, he was banned from another game store after trashing it during some kind of altercation. Tail end. This should never have gotten to this point. There were a million instances before this. I counted at least 9. I understand that naivete and wanting to maintain a friendship is an easy excuse to let things slide. I get it. But I'm gonna be honest, you fucked up. Even excusing some of the very clearly red flags that this guy was gonna be a problem, when he got you kicked out of a game store that you were playing at, that should have been the line. That should have been the big confrontation this story was about. Not him getting an axe and threatening the only woman I guess I don't know if she was the only woman around, but it sounded like she was the only one. That is 10 steps too far. Eddie, if you ever hear this, get help. And I mean professional, serious, real help. I don't want you to rot in prison, but I do not think that someone with your kind of temper, with your issues, should be out and about in public until you get help. Sarah, you deserved so much better than this. I dearly hope that the men in your life now are much, much better than this. I'm sorry, GM. You are kind of part of the problem here. You're an enabler, and that's bad. I'm glad you're learning, and you should feel a bit ashamed. I'm not surprised that Sarah wouldn't accept your apology. It shouldn't have gotten this far. On a more positive note, hey, I got to talk about my favorite thing in the world, Pathfinder, in a story that just is a terrible representation of the hobby. You win some, you lose some. Oh well. That'll do it for today. One of these days I'll get to talk about Pathfinder in a purely positive light instead of being attached to some like this. I say one of these. That's entirely on me. If I want to do that, I can just do that, and I just keep not do it. Whatever. Don't forget to like the video if you liked the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet done so, ring the bell, all that good stuff. It all helps, even if you may not think it does. The algorithm is in fact a cruel mistress. Giant shout out to my patrons over on patreon.com/FoxyBard. I hear if you actually say the URL in the video, people are much, much more likely to go check it out or remember it, instead of just vaguely alluding to a Patreon that exists. So, if you like what I do and you'd like to support me to keep doing it, you can head over there and sign up for as little as, I think I lowered it to $1 a month. You get videos a day early and ad-free, and you get your name here in the credits scrolling by. But I'm afraid if you want more from me, the only way you're gonna get it now is to join the Discord server. 'Cause this video's done, and you'll have to wait a week otherwise. Maybe. Bye!